All right, let's talk about something we all do pretty much every single day, making promises. But did you know there's an official rule book for that? It's called contract law. And no, this isn't some boring, dusty legal thing. It's the hidden framework behind literally everything, from your morning coffee to a massive business deal. So let's jump right in. Okay, so think about this for a second. What on earth could buying a simple cup of coffee have in common with, say, signing a multi-million-dollar business deal? I mean, they seem like they're from different planets, right? One's a couple of bucks, the other, well, it's not. But here's the crazy part. They actually share the exact same DNA. Yep, you heard that right. They are both governed by the exact same set of rules. There's this one single rule book that applies whether you're buying a latte or buying a company. And that, when you stop and think about it, is a pretty powerful idea, isn't it? It's the foundation for almost every commercial interaction we have. Okay, so we've been calling it a rule book and an invisible architecture. But what is this thing, really? Let's put a proper name to it and break it down. So officially, contract law is the body of law that regulates the relationship between parties to commercial agreements. Now, the key words there are regulates and relationship. See, it's not really about punishing people. It's about giving us all a clear, predictable framework for the promises we make to each other. All right, so if there's a rule book, a fair question to ask is, who wrote it? Where do these rules actually come from? Let's peel back that layer. Basically, the rules come from two major places. On the one hand, you've got legislation. Think of this as the new stuff, the laws passed by governments. This is where most of the big, recent changes in contract law come from. And on the other hand, you have what's called judge-made law. This is the old school stuff, the common law and equity that's been built up case by case over hundreds of years. And what's really interesting is how these two are always interacting, sometimes even clashing, the brand new laws versus the time-tested principles. So here's the thing. Every single contract, every single promise, actually goes on a journey. It has a life of its own, with a clear beginning, a middle, and an end. So let's follow that journey step by step. And here's the map of that journey. It breaks down into 5 key stages. First, formation. That's when the promise is born. Then, meaning. What did we actually agree to? Then, breach. What happens if someone breaks the promise? Fourth is termination, how it all ends. And finally, enforcement, making sure the promise is kept. We're going to walk through each one. Okay, stage 1, formation. This is the moment the agreement is born. It's when an offer is made and it's accepted. Now, this could be a super formal thing with signatures and lawyers, sure, but it can also be as simple as you walking up to the counter and saying, "I'll have a large latte." That's your offer, and when the barista nods and starts making it, that's the acceptance. Boom. Just like that, a legally binding promise has just been created. Next up, stage 2 is all about meaning. So a promise has been made, but what does it actually mean? If you said latte, does that automatically mean it comes with whole milk or oat milk? Or in a business deal, if a contract says you'll use your best efforts, what does best actually mean in practice? This is the part where we figure out exactly what was promised. And believe me, this is where things can get really complicated really fast. Of course, promises don't always get kept, right? And that takes us to stage 3, breach. A breach is just a fancy word for a broken promise. The barista hands you an espresso instead of your latte. A supplier delivers the wrong parts for your project. That's a breach. And this is the moment where that rule book we've been talking about becomes super important because it tells us what happens next. So every journey has to end, and every promise has an end point. That's stage 4, termination. For your coffee, the contract terminates the second you've paid and you've got your drink in hand. The promises have been fulfilled. A big business contract might terminate after a project's done or after a certain date. It's basically the formal closing of the book on that agreement, whether everything went perfectly or not. And that brings us to the final and maybe most important stage, enforcement. This is what gives the whole system its teeth. It's the so what part of the deal. If you paid for that latte and got the wrong drink, enforcement is what lets you get your money back or get the right coffee. In those huge deals, it's the legal system that allows a company to sue for damages. Enforcement is what makes sure that promises are more than just words. It's what gives this entire rulebook its power. Okay, so we've gone through the whole life cycle. We know what it is, where the rules come from, and how it works. But let's get down to brass tacks. Why should you care? What's the real bottom line here? Well, this quote really nails it. The law of contract is extremely important in the commercial world. And that's putting it mildly. This isn't just some side note in the legal world. It's the absolute bedrock of all commerce. Think about it. Without these rules creating trust and predictability, our entire economy just wouldn't work. So let's just wrap this all up. Why does it matter? Because it regulates our relationships when we make agreements. It gives a real solid structure to our promises. It covers a deal from the very beginning to the very end. And at the end of the day, it's the invisible engine that powers the entire commercial world we all live in. So I'll leave you with this. Every time you buy something, every time you click I agree on a website, every time you make a deal, big or small, you're using this system. You're playing by this rule book. So now that you know the rules of the game a little better, it kind of makes you think, right? What promise will you make next?